Welcome to our podcast where we connect the art and architecture of the past to the present. I'm your host, Alina.
And I am Mohammed Farooq Azimi. Today we are diving into the enduring impact of Roman art and architecture across history, from its Renaissance revival to its imprint on modern design.
We will also explore three major themes, which are evolution, adaptation, and cultural continuity. To help us these unpack ideas, we are joined by Dr. Rashid, an expert in classical art and architecture.
Thanks, Elena and Farouk. I'm thrilled to be here. Roman art and architecture have left a legacy that is not only tangible in ruins and structures, but also deeply embedded in how we think about design, space, and aesthetics.
Dr. Rashid, let's start with the Roman themselves. What defined Roman art and architecture, and how did it establish a foundation for later cultures?
Roman art and architecture were groundbreaking because they balanced utility with aesthetics. They were masterful at adopting ideas from earlier cultures, particularly the Greeks, and refining them. For example, while the Greeks emphasized harmony and proportion, the Romans focused on innovation and practicality, introducing the widespread use of concrete arches and domes.
The Pantheon is a prime example, right? That dome is an engineering marvel.
Absolute. The Pantheon's dome, with its oculus, is a masterpiece of engineering and design. It symbolized the heavens while showcasing the Romans' ability to bend structural integrity with symbolic meaning.
And what about Roman art? How did it differ from Greek art?
Roman art prioritized realism and narrative, while Greek statues idealized the human form. Roman portraiture aimed for authenticity. Statues of emperors like Augustus presented a mix of realism and symbolism, portraying them as both relatable and divine.
So it seems like the Romans were innovators, but also skilled emulators of the Greeks.
Exactly. They borrowed what worked but adapted it to their context, setting the stage for centuries of influence.
Right. Now let's move forward to the Renaissance. In your opinion, what sparked the revival of Roman art and architecture, Dr. Rashid?
Renaissance was all about rediscovering classical antiquity. After the Middle Ages, there was a renewed interest in humanism, symmetry, and proportion, all rooted in Roman ideals.
Oh, I see.
Artists and architects studied Roman ruins for inspiration, seeing them as the pinnacle of cultural achievement.
That's interesting.
Well, Michelangelo and Raphael come to my mind. How did they draw from Roman art?
Basically, Michelangelo's David, while inspired by Greek ideals, owes its monumental scale and expressive realism to Roman influences. Raphael's frescoes in the Vatican, particularly the School of Athens, incorporate Roman architectural elements like arches and coffered ceilings.
That's interesting. And what about the architecture?
Renaissance architects like Brunelleschi and Palladio directly studied Roman structures. Brunelleschi's dome for Florence Cathedral was inspired by the Pantheon, while Palladio's villas incorporated Roman temple designs, emphasizing symmetry, balance, and connection to nature. I hope that makes
So
sense.
the Renaissance wasn't just a revival. We can say it was a reinvention.
Precisely. They didn't just emulate Roman ideas, they adapted them to fit their cultural and technological context, creating something entirely new while honoring the past.
And if you move forward towards the 18th and 19th century, the neoclassicism, it feels like, another wave of Roman influence, in my opinion. What fueled this movement? What were the motivations behind this movement?
Neoclassicism was driven by the Enlightenment ideals of reason and order, like Roman architecture with its emphasis on symmetry and grandeur aligned perfectly with these values.
Oh, I see.
And government used Roman-inspired designs to convey authority and stability. The U.S. Capitol and the Arc de Triomphe are prime examples.
Got it. And today, How does Roman influence persist in modern design?
To be honest, Roman principles are everywhere. Think of large public spaces with open courtyards or modern stadiums inspired by the Colosseum. Architects still use Roman innovations like vaulted ceilings and domes. Even minimalist designs often echo Roman ideals of simplicity and proportion.
And now that I think about it, like it's just amazing how these ideas have endured for over 2 millennia. I mean, it's a lot.
I know, right? It speaks to the universality of Roman design, durable, functional, and aesthetically pleasing.
Okay, so now let's move forward and unpack these ideas of adaptation and cultural continuity. So, Dr. Rashid, can we start with adaptation? How did the cultures after the Romans modify their artistic and architectural ideas?
Yes, of course. Adaptation is about making something your own while preserving its essence. After the fall of the Roman Empire, many of its structures, concepts, and techniques did not disappear.
Oh,
They were reinterpreted. For instance, during the Byzantine period, Roman architectural principles were fused with Christian religious symbolism. The Hagia Sophia in the Constantinople is a great example.
right.
It took the Roman dome and transformed it into a spiritual centerpiece by adding mosaics and emphasizing light, creating a new sacred experience.
That's interesting. Then what about the Gothic period? Did the Roman influence fade?
Not at all. Gothic architecture seems distinct, but its engineering roots are Rome.
Oh, I see.
The pointed arches and the flying buttresses evolved from Roman innovations like the rounded arch and vaulted ceilings. The difference was their purpose.
Right.
Gothic builders aimed for height and light, creating structures that felt heavenly. The continuity lies in the use of Roman engineering principles to achieve new goals.
Oh, I see. So what about the Renaissance? That's often seen as a direct revival of Roman ideas.
Yeah, basically, Renaissance architects didn't just copy Roman styles, they studied them very deeply. Take, what's his name? Leon Battista Alberti, who wrote De Re Edificario. It means on the art of building. It was directly inspired by Vitruvius, a Roman architect. But Alberti adapted those ideas to Renaissance ideals of humanism and proportionality. His design combined Roman balance with contemporary innovation like integrating civic spaces into urban planning.
And how did adaptation play a role in political symbolism, in your opinion, especially in neoclassicism?
That's a great question. Neoclassicism adapted Roman forms to express power and stability. For example, in post-revolutionary France, the Arc de Triomphe borrowed the Roman triumphal arc to symbolize the victory and resilience. Similarly, in the US, Thomas Jefferson used Roman designs for government buildings to evoke democracy and enduring strength. These adaptations kept Romans' ideals alive and while reflecting contemporary political values.
Now let's pivot to culture continuity. How have Roman ideas remained consistent through centuries, even when adapted?
Yes, for sure. Roman culture established enduring principles in art and architecture. One key aspect of this continuity is their emphasis on function and beauty. Roman aqueducts, for example, were both practical and monumental. This idea of blending utility with aesthetics carried through the Renaissance and into the modern era. Even today, when we design public buildings, we prioritize durability and elegance, just as the Romans did, you know?
So can we see this continuity in art as well?
Yes, of course. Even in visual art, the Roman focus was on realism and storytelling per se. Consider how Renaissance artists like Caravaggio were inspired by Roman frescoes and mosaics, emphasizing drama and perspective. This emphasis on narrative art continued into the Baroque period and can even be seen in modern cinematic technique.
Well, that's fascinating. But what about less obvious ways Roman culture influences us?
You know, urban planning is a great example. Roman cities were meticulously organized with forums, roads, and aqueducts. That concept of a planned city layout directly influenced European capitals and even American cities. Washington, D.C., for instance, mirrors the Roman idea of centralized power expressed through grand symmetrical designs.
Oh, so you mean to say it's just not about the aesthetics, it's about the structure of our daily lives?
Yes, of course, you got that on point. Roman continuity isn't just about physical structures, it's about the principles underlying them. Order, durability, and harmony. These ideas are woven into the fabric of Western civilization, influencing everything from governance to urban design.
It's amazing how adaptable and yet consistent Roman culture has been.
That's the beauty of their legacy. The Romans created a foundation so flexible yet robust that it could evolve while retaining its core essence.
Dr. Rashid, thank you so much for guiding us
Mhm.
through this incredible journey.
Thank you, Elena and Farouk, for having me on here and giving me the opportunity to spread the knowledge about Roman art and architecture because they are so much more than they seem to be.
And to all listeners, thank you very much for staying tuned.
Until then,
Take
take
care.
care.